Hello, students. This is your makeup work for the before video questions. There should be a link to watch a video on grapes, which is kind of the first part of what we talked about in class. So that link is a YouTube video on the new cotton candy grapes. And so as we talked about that video, and pause right now and go click on the link and watch it. And then when you come back, you can rejoin us. Okay, now that you have watched the video on the grapes, some of the questions that we talked about as we went through that included things like, why are the grapes green? Why are they so sweet? How did they get this information to become so sweet? How many different things were crossbred? And so these were all student-generated questions. So then we had the discussion about, okay, well, if the grapes have certain traits, is that similar to us having certain traits? So how do we get our traits? And so we kind of stopped and talked through that, and the class said, oh, we get our traits through genes, through the chromosomes that we get from our mom and our dad. So we get our one set of chromosomes from our mom and our second complete set of chromosomes from our dad. And so we get half of our genes from our mom and half of our genes from our dad. And we have two copies that way of every gene. Oh, do grapes do the same thing? Yeah, they do. And so basically, where do the grapes get these traits? Well, for lack of a better explanation right now, the baby grape gets their genes half from the mommy grape and half from the daddy grape. And so those sets of chromosomes are passed on to the baby grape. And so what happened with those grapes to make them so sweet and taste like cotton candy is essentially that the farmers or the producers here kept breeding grapes or kept combining grapes that were really, really sweet to try to get the sweetest, most cotton candy tasting grape that they could come up with. So that is biotechnology. That is a use of selective breeding, which is a form of artificial selection. We're getting ready to talk about natural selection, but we're looking at artificial selection, or we're looking at a way that we can manipulate what is happening within nature. One question that we asked and did a poll on was, how long has biotechnology been around? How long do you think biotechnology has been around? Well, some of the answers that I gave as possibilities would be maybe 100 years, maybe since the Industrial Revolution, maybe since we started using medicines, or maybe since humans have been around. And the answer to that would actually be that biotechnology has been around as long as humans have been around. So as we started thinking through that information, we need to start asking and answering some questions. So, okay, well, if biotechnology is kind of what's been going on, then is this grapes example biotechnology? Yes, it is. Absolutely. So, well, maybe we should define some of this information. So you will find in your assignment for Thursday, that was our in-class assignment, you'll find a Google Doc that has before video questions. And so I'm going to run through these before video questions with you right now. You can pause as you go through this video at different points so that you can write these answers down into your own video. Into your own video sheet. So the first question, what is biotechnology? What do you think biotechnology is? Biotechnology could be defined as using natural biological processes to solve a human problem. So this highlighted part right here, using natural biological processes to solve a human problem. And so we do that now. And we've done that as long, really, as humans have existed. We have tried to figure out, oh, well, how do we take this grain that we eat, this plant that we eat, and make it produce more? Or how do we make it more drought resistant? Or how do we make it more pest resistant? Oh, these particular melons are really good to eat, and maybe this melon, this plant had a bunch of different really good tasting melons on it. So maybe if I save the seeds from this melon and plant them for next year, maybe we'll get good tasting melons next year also. So we've used natural processes to solve human problems for a very, very long time. Your next question: what are some examples of biotechnology? What do you think are some examples of biotechnology? Here are some things that you can add to your answer. So, people using prosthetic limbs, using plants to keep soil in place, breeding animals together to get them to look the way that you want. We see that often with dogs or show cattle, different farm animals that we show, different horses. So we see all three of these things, and you probably can come up with some more examples on your own. On to the next question. Give an example of how scientists use DNA. So here are a couple of possible answers. Scientists use DNA to catch criminals or to figure out who a baby belongs to. You can write those down, and you can also come up with some other answers on your own. Some of the things that we talked about in class would be treating a disease or figuring out information about a disease, or maybe even figuring out who has a disease. Okay, on to the next one. How can humans affect the traits of other living things? And give an example. So, what we often see here is that humans affect the traits of other living things by mixing them together through artificial selection. That's humans choosing what traits are selected for. We do this with dog breeds to get golden doodles. That's where you'd mix a poodle and a retriever. I'm sure some of you have golden doodles. They're good dogs. And they're very popular dogs. They don't shed very much. They're smart. They're fun. They're really good dogs to have. They kind of, if you get a good golden doodle, then it's a good mix of both the poodle breed and the retriever breed. What are some other things that you might think of? Okay. Next question is, give an example of how biotechnology might be used to cure disease. So this is a student answer. And this student thought that maybe biotechnology could be used to make medicine, or maybe it's when somebody gets chemotherapy. What are some examples that you might think of for biotechnology curing diseases? And then our last question for the before video questions: give an example of one way you use biotechnology today. Well, I opened my phone. That's one way to do it. I didn't actually wash my hands with antibacterial soap, but I did wash my hands with regular soap. And yesterday, Thursday, I had used hand sanitizer as well. So antibacterial soap tends to not be the greatest idea because it'll kill some good bacteria that you don't really want, or it can lead to bacteria that are resistant to certain antibiotics. So it's better to use plain soap and water, or to use like a good 70% or more alcohol hand sanitizer. Okay, so come up with a couple of ways that you use biotechnology today. And then when you finish, I think the question that several of the classes had as our last class question is, what is the best Christmas movie of all time? And so we talked about that in a poll. Sixth period will get that question one day next week. Okay, so you now need to watch the video that's linked. It's linked both in Thursday and in your Monday assignment. And in your Monday assignment, you have some after video questions that you'll need to answer. They are also in a Google Doc, and you'll just need to answer those questions after you watch the video. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you on Tuesday.